Ngayong panahon ng pandemya, nagkaroon ng iba't ibang mga protocols ang bawat LGU. Sana po ay matulungan kami ng Department of Science and Technology upang mapadali ang pag-uwi ng mga pasahero.
Yung SPAS po is a travel management system in response doon sa need natin for travel coordination papunta sa ating mga destination LGUs.
Another day, another adventure.
We're going to talk about how to look and feel your best.
Ano nga ba mga bagay na dapat i-share at dapat hindi?
We're taking you to new destinations and eco-friendly tourist spots.
Let's get moving.
Hashtag proud moment. Ganda nun.
Always rise up, and for sure, you will always get there.
What we put in our bodies is actually what keeps us going.
I am doing this because this is my passion.
Tell him it's me calling him. This is from the office of Mr. Django Kongwei. Labas yung bank president. So kinausap siya. If he will borrow 4 million, I will guarantee. That's what I'm enjoying now because of what they teach me before to protect your credibility. You can lose money, but very hard to earn back your credibility. So this is what I'm sharing to my kids and to all the other upcoming Chinese businessmen.
There's money you earn, spend, and save. Then there's money you set aside to make more. Investments that are made in stocks, shares, bonds, or properties, just to name a few. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. They're all part of the ups and downs of any business, of any economy. These developments can affect our investments. They can get complicated. But we will make sense of them all right here on The Exchange, where your business is our business on CNN Philippines.
This is Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Pio Ontiveros. Tonight on the program, President-elect Bongbong Marcos reveals the members of his economic team, including Bangko Sentral Governor Benjamin Diokno, who will head the finance department. More COVID-19 cases coming out of Palawan. A group of 14 tourists and 2 crew members test positive for the disease. Authorities are checking their samples for variants. And the queen of Philippine movies, Susan Roses, finally laid to rest next to her husband, the King, Fernando Poe Jr. A day after his proclamation as president-elect, Bongbong Marcos names more key people to his cabinet, including the team that will steer the economy for the next 6 years. Rex Remito gives us the bigger picture of the new appointments live from the Marcos campaign headquarters in Mandaluyong City. Rex, who is at the helm of his economic managers?
Well, first, the country's recovery from the economic crisis due to the COVID-19 pandemic is the main priority of the incoming Marcos administration. That's why many would like to know the composition of his economic team, since it can dictate the future of millions of Filipinos. They have to respond to rising prices of basic goods, oil, and on how the government can pay its ballooning debts. Bangko Sentral Governor Ben Diokno may not be able to finish his term, supposedly to expire July next year. Diokno has already accepted the offer of President-elect Bongbong Marcos to be the next Finance Secretary. He will be replaced by Monetary Board member and former Socio-Economic Planning Chief Felipe Medalla. They will have to solve some pressing challenges affecting the lives of many Filipinos. The next economic managers will have to decide on whether or not they can reduce income taxes mandated under the Train Law, as well as deal with the Finance Department's proposal of increasing taxes in many products and services so the government will have more money. Marcos, however, admits he has no decision yet as they're still studying the proposals.
Yung mga pabigla-bigla na tinataas, binababa, hindi natin magagawa yun dahil kung gawin natin yan, it will, if there are too many moving parts, you cannot anticipate what will happen.
He is also still studying if government can afford to suspend the oil excise tax amid the rising petroleum prices in the global market.
First of all, we cannot control prices. Hindi tayo price giver, price taker tayo sa oil market.
Aside from Diokno and Medalla, BBM also nominates Fred Pascual as the next Trade and Industry Secretary. Pascual is the former president of the University of the Philippines and now president of the Management Association of the Philippines. Marcos also designates SMC Tollways President and CEO Manny Bonoan to be his Public Works and Highways Secretary. Bonoan once served as DPWH Undersecretary during the time of Presidents Erap Estrada and Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. He's expected to continue President Duterte's Build infrastructure program. As he continues to complete his economic team, he believes they are on a good start, despite worries of some investors and analysts about the future state of the economy under the Marcos administration. On his campaign promise of lowering the price of rice to 20 pesos per kilo, he clarifies that it's an aspiration and they have to do many reforms which will take several years. He also did not say if that will happen under his administration. Back to you, Pia.
Rex Remigio there reporting. But Rex, before I let you go, what about the other positions in other government agencies? Does President-elect Marcos have any nominees so far?
He designated his close friend and former Davao del Norte Congressman Anton Lagdameo as the special assistant to the president. We can recall that President Duterte created the position for his longtime aide and now Senator Bongo. But for other agencies like the Bureau of Customs and Internal Revenue, he says they're still in the process of looking for potential nominees. Pia.
Rex Remigio there reporting. Business groups are optimistic about the policies of President-elect Bongbong Marcos's economic team. The influential Makati Business Club, or MBC, says the appointments, quote, should boost the confidence of local and foreign businesses that the new administration will promote liberalizing but inclusive policies that will accelerate job creation, competition, and economic recovery, unquote. The British Chamber of Commerce also expects the economy to further open up and for the incoming administration to ratify a regional trade agreement while continuing to spend on public infrastructure.
We expect to see continuity. We expect to see further economic liberalisation. And also, I'd just like to say we'd like to see pass now actually ratification of the RCEP, which is the trade agreement. And going forward, we see further investment in the economy, the infrastructure.
The chamber went on to say that it looks forward to working with the new administration. Well, aside from his economic managers, Marcos brings up the government's war on drugs. Speaking to select members of the media, he got to discuss the matter. Well, he says he got to discuss the matter with President Rodrigo Duterte. Marcos reveals they met several times, even before the elections. He also says Mr. Duterte can join his administration as a drug czar if he wants to, although they have not talked about it.
One thing that he was very assertive about was that ituloy mo yung anti-drug syndicate na sinimulan ko. Do it your own way. He really said that. Do it your own way. Palitan mo, gawin mo yung gusto, pero wag mong iiwanan yan dahil kawawa ang kabataan natin. Talagang nasisira ang mga buhay nila.
Mr. Duterte's drug war has killed around 6,000 alleged drug offenders based on government records, but human rights groups say the number is much higher. A historic proclamation with another Marcos and another Duterte holding the top two posts in government, Bongbong Marcos as president-elect more than 3 decades after his father's regime was toppled by a peaceful revolt, and Sara Duterte as vice president-elect just as her father is about to end his term as chief executive. With the country still suffering from the impact of the pandemic along with high consumer prices and rising government debt, Amor Santos tells us Marcos has an appeal to the Filipino people.
I ask you all, pray for me, wish me well. I want to do well because when a president does well, the country does well, and I want to do well for this country.
This is what Bongbong Marcos said shortly after being proclaimed president-elect. He says he's humbled by the trust and confidence given to him by the people. He also commits to do his best.
To have received over 31 million votes from our countrymen is as valuable a expression of trust as can be had by anyone in public life. And so for that, I thank our people. And beyond that, I promise you that we may not be perfect, but we will always strive to perfection. Thank you very much.
Marcos congratulated the Commission on Elections, poll workers, and the National Board of Canvassers for a job well done.
In my experience, the best run election that we have seen, and that it has reflected truly the voice of the people and the choice of the people.
In 2016, Marcos filed an election protest against Vice President Leni Robredo. After 5 years of fighting, the Supreme Court unanimously junked the case. In the race to Malacanang, the Marcos camp rallied for unity and continues to do so.
His offering is his unifying brand of leadership. He is now the president-elect. He's been proclaimed by the joint houses of Congress, and he will be president of all Filipinos. He will be president of every Filipino.
Unsurprisingly, the winner's camp is still plagued by controversies involving the Marcos family. Marcos spokesperson shot down a question about next year's commemoration of the People Power Revolution, which ousted dictator Ferdinand Marcos. Vice President-elect Sara Duterte, for her part, dedicated her victory to the victims of terrorism, abuse, criminality, and bullying. Her message to public servants and Filipinos.
The Commission on Elections, our teachers, police, and soldiers, and the honorable members of Congress in joint session, thank you for a generally peaceful and orderly election. Magtulungan tayo para sa isang bayan na mapayapa at nagkakaisa. Mahal natin ang Pilipinas.
Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
So what do the Marcoses think about their return to Malacanang? For Senator Amy Marcos, her brother's victory is a second chance and a restoration of faith and confidence in their family.
Kung tutuusin, hindi masyadong mahalaga yung pagbabalik sa palasyo. What's most important to us is, of course, our name, the family name that has become so controversial and so difficult at times to bear. The legacy of my father is what we hope will be clarified at last.
Amy Marcos also says their mother Imelda seemingly stopped showing signs of aging upon hearing that her only son won.
Well, siyempre yung nanay ko sobrang excited. Sobrang excited niya at tuwan-tuwa siya sa mga pangyayari. She's suddenly able to hear, to walk, lahat ng sakit-sakit nung panahon ng COVID, lahat ng nararamdaman, biglang nawala, maliksing maliksi, at parang hindi na siya ulit 92, kundi 29.
Despite a graft conviction in 2018, the Sandigan Bayan allowed Imelda to post bail of 300,000 pesos, partly because of her age and state of health. She was 89 years old then. Imelda was sentenced to serve 6 to 11 years in prison for illegally funneling at least $352 million to Swiss foundations when she was governor of Metro Manila in the 1970s. Coming up, the last batch of winners for the May 9 elections have been proclaimed. 55 party list groups will form part of the 19th Congress, which opens in 2 months. Plus, more tourists who went diving at the Tubataha Reef in Palawan test positive for COVID-19. The details right here on Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Fried chicken? Timplang happy. Tocino? Timplang magandang gising. Inasal? Ito, medyo timplang umuusok. Galit-galitan. Spicy? Timplang hot na hot. With easy-to-cook Magnolia Chicken Timplados. Iba't ibang sarap ng chicken, kaya. Ikaw, anong Magnolia Chicken Timplados mo? Iba't ibang easy chicken sarap.
Making life sweet is easy dahil 35 pesos SRP lang ang San Miguel flavored beer. Swak sa budget, panalo sa sweetness. Uy, sweet! Make life sweet with San Miguel flavored beer.
This is Newsnight on CNN. Philippines Congress has proclaimed the winning... COMELEC, the Commission on Elections, has proclaimed the winning party lists for the incoming 19th Congress. Joining us for more details is Melissa Lopez, reporting live from the Philippine International Convention Center in Pasay. Mel?
The 55 party list will officially form part of the 19th Congress, which opens in July. The PICC was filled to capacity as 2 officials for the party list sat up in front for the ceremony, went up to the stage to accept their certificates of proclamation and posed for the traditional hand-raising gesture. 63 seats were up for grabs for 177 contenders. COMELEC went ahead with today's event but only proclaimed the winners for 62 seats. The list is on your screen. That's because the group United Senior Citizens, ranked 37th, was excluded as its registration as a party list was denied. The case is still on appeal before the COMELEC and Bank. However, longtime party lists Kabataan and Gabriela have been proclaimed with 1 seat each despite a request from the government's NTF-ELCAC to cancel their registration. Who will be part of the next Congress? 15 of the 55 party lists are first-timers. The rest have representatives serving as lawmakers since 2019. Meanwhile, some of the long-serving party lists in previous Congresses did not make it, like Buhay and Bayan Muna. Some party lists are represented by the likes of religious leader Brother Eddie Villanueva for Sibac, TV host Carla Estrada for Tingog, Senator Bong Revilla's son Brian for Agimat, and Senator-elect Rafi Tulfo's wife Jocelyn for ACT-CIS. Others led by showbiz icons did not make it. But here is COMELEC's explanation.
Whether they belong to the sector that they represent or they are advocate of the sector that they represent.
There were some awkward moments as the Magsasaka and Senior Citizens Party List had warring factions with 2 sets of nominees present today. COMELEC decided not to hand over the certificate nor raise any hands pending resolution. P3 PWD of former COMELEC Commissioner Rowena Guanzon did not send any representatives, leaving the stage empty. Anti-crime group ACT-CIS topped the race and got 3 seats, while those in the 2nd to 6th spots got 2 each. Transport Group 1 rider, Visayan Region Party List Tingog, Pro-Livelihood Group for Peace, Ako Bicol, and Sagip. The rest of the party list groups will field 1 representative each in the next Congress to help pass laws, craft the national budget, and maintain checks and balances for the Marcos Duterte administration. Back to you, Pia.
Melissa Lopez there reporting from the PICC Forum tent in Pasay. Activist groups condemning the police for supposed violence on protesters during the proclamation of President-elect Marcos on Wednesday. They warn the incident could just be a preview of how another Marcos administration will look like. George Cahilas reports.
The peaceful mass action at the Commission on Human Rights compound turned violent on Wednesday when authorities stopped the demonstrators from marching to the Batasang Pambansa, where the proclamation of winning presidential and vice presidential candidates took place. Protesters want the family of President-elect Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to be held liable for corruption and human rights violations during the martial law, and for the government to look into the supposed irregularities during the May 9 elections. Police officers in full battle gear clashed with the activists as water cannon was used to disperse them. 14 protesters were hurt during the commotion.
Hindi natin talaga inaasahan itong overkill reaction ng police. Sa tingin natin, uncalled for, unnecessary, na nag-inconvenience sa maraming motorista, commuters, tapos gumamit pa ng dahas.
The police meanwhile explains their action was part of the plan to ensure a peaceful and orderly conduct of the proclamation of the country's next leaders. They insist they exercised maximum tolerance. Protesters, however, argue that if maximum tolerance meant using water cannon and hitting people with sticks, then people just got a peek of what the new norm will be under the Marcos administration.
Ito pa ay pasilip kung sa mangyayari in the next 6 years. Yung paranoid reaction ng police, yung intolerance sa dissent.
The groups are set to discuss with the Commission on Human Rights the appropriate actions to be taken in connection with the violent dispersal on Wednesday, as they prepare for bigger protests in the coming days, leading to the inauguration of Marcos on June 30th. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
The Senate unanimously approves a bill creating the Bulacan Airport City Special Economic Zone and Freeport, or the Bulacan Eco Zone. This covers the new Manila International Airport, which will be the country's largest and most sophisticated gateway, and the Aero City, a sprawling complex of industrial, commercial, and government centers. All 21 centers present during Thursday's plenary session voted to pass the measure. The Ecozone will be managed and operated as a separate customs territory to ensure a free flow of goods and capital. A Bulacan Ecozone Authority will be established with a corporate life of 50 years. The Ecozone is seen to create job opportunities and help speed up economic recovery. More tourists that went diving at the Tubataha Reef in Palawan have tested positive for COVID-19. Experts are checking the samples of 14 foreign travelers and 2 local crew members for variants of concern. 5 of the tourists, or 5 of them, had mild symptoms after traveling to Puerto Princesa City last May 14th. All 16 individuals are now in isolation.
For now, ang hinihingi sa mga agencies, sa mga travel agencies sa ating tourism sector na is to monitor closely yung mga pumapasok na mga turista, and at the same time, ma-remind sila kung magkaroon man ng symptoms, may report agad. Nag-coordinate na rin sa provincial government kung ano yung magiging protocol sa mga foreign tourists, even local tourists na papasok dito sa Puerto Princesa. Ang recommendation, kung pwede yung mga turista na papasok ng Puerto Princesa, at least may antigen test. Kasi for now, nasa alert level 1 lang ang Puerto. Kaya hindi siya pwedeng i-require.
Last month, 12 cases from the Tubata Reef tested positive for the Omicron subvariant BA2.12.1. Experts have warned a COVID-19 surge may happen in the coming weeks, which is why officials are doubling efforts to urge people to get boosted. A ceremonial vaccination was held in Mandaluyong City for priority groups today. Overseas headlines: a community in the U.S. state of Texas is mourning the loss of 19 children and 2 adults who were shot and killed at an elementary school in the city of Uvalde. CNN's Chris Nguyen has chilling new details about the young man behind the incident.
A community heartbroken. Residents in Uvalde, Texas, mourning the loss of 19 children and 2 teachers who were tragically shot and killed at Robb Elementary on Tuesday. These are the faces of just some of the lives cut too short. 4th grade teacher Eva Morales, A. Mary Jo Garza, Jose Flores Jr., Uzziah Garcia, and Javier Lopez. All of them only 10 years old.
How do you look at this girl and shoot her? Oh, my baby, how do you shoot my baby?
Chilling new details emerging about the suspected gunman. Police say he shot his grandmother before going to the school and opening fire on a 4th grade class. Officials say he purchased 2 assault-style rifles for his 18th birthday.
What can you tell us about your grandson? Did you ever know he had firearms?
No, I didn't know. If I had known, I would have reported him.
As the community grapples with this horrific tragedy, politicians are demanding action to curb gun violence.
The idea that an 18-year-old can walk into a store and buy weapons of war designed and marketed to kill is, I think, just wrong.
I'm Chris Nguyen reporting.
CNN obtained proof the gunman initially sent a series of messages to a girl he met online about his plans. Coming up on Newsnight, in Susan Ross's funeral earlier, friends and family look back at the star's impact beyond the film industry. Plus, who broke the Eastern Conference Finals tie in Game 5, the Miami Heat or the Boston Celtics? NBA updates after the break.
MX3 dahil ito ay napatunayang may alpha, beta at gamma mangosteen. MX3 capsule helps avoid pain discomfort para iwas sakit. Tested and proven na low sodium, cholesterol-free at fat-free. Dito ako sa tunay, natural at original. MX3.
Mahalagang paalala, ang MX3 capsule ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Land Bank has always believed that in this country, we have to dream big. And so we learned to build something out of nothing. Improving the quality of life for our people. So that we can keep in step with a brave new world. And make our big dreams come true.
Welcome back. Veteran actress Susan Rosses finally laid to rest today. How is she remembered by those who knew her behind the scenes? Our Paulo Barcelon reports.
17 years after her husband passed on, the queen of Philippine movies is reunited with her king. Susan Rosses was laid to rest past noon Thursday beside the tomb of Fernando Poe Jr. at the Manila North Cemetery. Her daughter, Senator Grace Poe, family, friends, and fellow actors were there to bid their last farewell. People close to Rosses remembered her for 2 things: her kindness and the good times they had with the woman they call Tita Susan.
Alaga ako niyan mula nung bata ako, very thoughtful sa akin, laruan, tsokolate, ganyan, lagi niya alala.
Napakalungkot po din.
Kasi napasyado malapit po ako sa pamilya nila. Naabutan niyo ako ng papel. Nakalagay ko sa papel kung saan ako pupunta ng restaurant. Kasi sabi niya ko sa akin, Ador, hindi ka na maiba sa pamilya.
May God give her a mercy.
Before the funeral, a mass was held at the Heritage Park where the wake was held. Among those who visited last night, President Rodrigo Duterte, who met Senator Poe and her family. Poe and Duterte were once rivals for the presidency 6 years ago, but last night, the chief executive condoled with Senator Poe. Senator Grace earlier thanked the public for their overwhelming support, revealing that one of her late mother's most prized pieces of advice came from a line used in her first political ad in 2013.
So take, ginawa namin yung commercial. So after I said, sabi ni Susan, promise? And I said, promise po. Dinagdagan niya. Wala sa script. Sabi niya, pagbutihan mo. Perfect, di ba? Yan ang palagi niyang sinasabi na banta sa akin.
Her tomb still awaits its grave marker, but a handwritten note is left as the cement dries out for the day. It says JSP, the initials of Rosas' real name, Jesusa Sonora Poe, followed by We Love You, words from her family, friends, and supporters, now that the Queen is finally reunited with her one and only, the King. Paulo Barcelon, CNN Philippines.
Moving on to sports news, Justin Baltazar from the De La Salle Green Archers is suiting up for the Hiroshima Dragonflies in Japan's B-League. The star athlete signed a contract with the Dragonflies for the 2022 to 2023 season. Big man Baltazar initially applied for the PBA rookie draft, but later withdrew his name. Now off to the NBA, the Boston Celtics snatched the Eastern Conference Finals lead at 3-2. The team defeated the Miami Heat in Game 5, 93-80, after an impressive turnaround in the third quarter. Now if the Celtics win Game 6 this Saturday, 8:30 a.m. Philippine time, they head to the finals. In the Western Conference Finals, it's do or die again for the Dallas Mavericks in Game 5 tomorrow at 9 a.m. The Golden State Warriors are a win away from advancing to the finals. After 19 seasons, the Ellen DeGeneres Show says goodbye tomorrow. The final episode is slated for Friday morning Philippine time. Ellen said, as fun as it is, it's just not a challenge anymore. She was the first lead actor in a sitcom to come out as gay back in 1997. A few years later, the Ellen DeGeneres Show was born. There were reports last summer of a toxic work environment, but Ellen now says this is not why she's ending the show, calling her staff her family. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pio Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by
BYKB Radio
When the Filipino votes on May 9, all hands will be on deck. And among those hands, the armed forces, the Philippine National Police, the Parish Pastoral Council for Responsible Voting, or PPCRV, and the National Movement for Free Elections, or NAMFREL. The Chief of Staff of the AFP, the Chief of the PNP, and the chairpersons of the PPCRV and NAMFREL join me tonight here on Politics as Usual, your weekly political appointment fix. I'm Pio Ontiveros. Welcome to the show. Armed Forces Chief of Staff General Andres Andy Centino, Philippine National Police Chief General Jonard Carlos, PPCRV Chairperson Myla Villanueva, and NAMFREL Chair Gus Lagman. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, 6 days before the May 9 election. So let's begin with this. Let's talk about very briefly the roles of each of your organizations. We need to remind the viewers, the voters, citizens who are watching right now. General Centino.
Yeah, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, together with the PNP and the Philippine Coast Guard, are deputized agencies by the COMELEC to ensure that we are able to secure the elections starting from way back January of this year during the election period until election day, and then when the election period is over.
General Carlos.
Same, we're the deputized agency under the COMELEC for the security of the election from January 8 to June 9 of 2022.
Myla Villanueva for PPCRV.
We're the accredited citizens arm of the COMELEC that is charged with poll watching and also the unofficial parallel count starting May 9 with about 6 months worth of work on preparing for the poll watching.
Unofficial parallel, that is the quick count. So by the late evening of May 9, Monday, we will already know the results, right? Gus Alagman, sir, for NABFREL.
We have been, we're also accredited, and we have been tasked to do the random manual audit by COMELEC. So that's, we're going to take care of that. Where there are gaps, then we might do some poll watching also. But we don't duplicate what
right.
the others are doing already.
Right. Random manual audit or RMA, you're going to be looking at the ER or COC? Election return or certificate of canvass?
First we choose about 750 precincts nationwide, and we do a manual count and then compare that with the official count of COMELEC. And hopefully they'd be the same.
Okay, and this has been done in the past. You've done
Yes,
RMA
since
before.
2010.
Right, and you have been, generally satisfied with the results of that
That's
RMA.
true. Yeah.
Okay. Just today, and this is for Gus Lagman and Myla Villanueva, just today, Tuesday, May 3, the COMELEC did the testing and sealing of several VCMs or vote counting machines in several precincts. Are you satisfied from what you've heard, and from what you've seen on news reports, for example? Are you satisfied with that exercise today, Mr. Lagman, sir?
Yes, we didn't notice. There were no reports where they came out very much different from what was expected.
Myla?
Yeah, so for our listeners, the final testing and sealing is supposed to take 10 ballots and to be voted upon and fed to the machine to see if the machines count properly. And they did. They did, and it did what it was supposed to do.
Okay. Of course, everybody remembers, and I wanted to bring this up a little later on, but let's get it out of the way already. Everyone remembers what happened back in 2019, when there was that glitch. For several hours on election night, we had a problem. We couldn't report results. Very briefly, Myla, can you just tell us what happened and how we are going to avoid that same circumstances from happening again?
Yeah, so it's the transparency server that is housed with the PPCRV and the media, accredited media partners that we have, the Kapisanan ng Broadcasters ng Pilipinas. And at that time, I think the results came so fast because our transmission systems have improved quite a lot. That the machine was overpowered, the server was overpowered.
Okay.
And we did work with the COMELEC and ask them to test properly for this upcoming cycle so that it doesn't happen again. We did prove to the public that there was nothing untoward. The results remained the same regardless of the glitch, and that we find that credible in terms of results.
It did not alter the results, in other words, and people were satisfied with that explanation. And to make it even more parang understandable, para bang funnel, the funnel, the idea of the funnel na you have so much coming in, tapos ganito kaliit lang yung pagdadaanan, correct?
Correct. The machine should have the power to, handle the transactions that are given it. So medyo it was underpowered, so to speak.
And of course, for the viewers tonight, it's important that you listen to what Myla Villanueva is saying, because she is the subject matter expert, right? Technology is your forte.
Yes,
right?
and so is Gus, by
And
the
of
way.
course, Gus
Yes.
Lagman, who is a
Long
NAFL
ago.
veteran. Long ago, nung manual pang elections na mamaya pag-usapan pa natin yon. But anyway, I just wanted to ask the General Carlos and General Centino. So earlier you did participate or help secure yung delivery ng mga election paraphernalia, right? Yung mga vote counting machines, ballot boxes, etc. Lahat ng dokumento, balota, etc. Nothing untoward happened, right? Everything went smoothly. Wala tayong problema. There is no glitch whatsoever. Everything is in place. General Centino.
Yeah, we were instructed to support the PNP in the transport of the election paraphernalia, and we didn't monitor any problem during this transport.
Yes, there's no glitch, but we're preparing also for the reverse logistics. That's the challenge. After the elections, bringing all these machines, these materials back to the warehouse. That's really where the challenge is.
Okay, we're going to talk about that a little later on in the show also. This is for, again, for General Andy Centino and General Jonard Carlos. Let's talk about, in general muna, ano itong mga risk factors natin na pinag-uusapan when we talk about election day and right before election day, the eve of election day itself, and following election day. Tapos iisa-isahin natin to lahat. General Centino.
Yeah. In the past elections, we have monitored incidents related to elections, and these are the risks that we have to consider in deployment of our forces. That's why we have to establish checkpoints in coordination, of course, with the PNP. There will be use, perhaps, of some armed men. By some politicians, and we will be ready for that. In fact, our checkpoints have resulted to some arrests of possessions of illegal firearms, and these are the things that will continue even after the last day of the campaign and even up to election day.
General Carlos.
Yes, all the preparations were done before the election period. Counting of our police security that are detailed to BIPs or protectee, especially those that are going to be candidates for this election. So we followed the Alunan doctrine of the President of only deploying 2, but with the approval of the COMELEC in the deployment of these security personnel. And then we look at we did a threat assessment on all these candidates because they did file their candidacy as early as October. So then we follow the regular checkpoints with the armed forces, our COMELEC gun ban checkpoints daily. And then after that, we look at the materials, the equipment that we have, and do we have enough mobility equipment and the deployment of personnel. So we try to maximize the deployment of all PNP personnel for these elections. We're only keeping as our reserve force those who voted during the absentee voting. All admin personnel will be deployed where they can vote. That's our plan. So we're maximizing presence of the police in all these polling centers and polling precincts and centers. And then our quick reaction teams with the armed forces of the Philippines, and then securing the hub for this equipment, the forward deploy and the reverse deployment of this equipment, including the COMELEC offices, coordinate with the telcos, with the power companies, and look at the possible weather condition on the D-Day. So all of these are put into in the planning, and then the signal in the different polling centers. So we look at this and communicated with the telcos and the power companies if we can be provided a proper
both
supply.
General Carlos, both you and General Centino are saying that you have everything covered at kayong bahala.
That's right.
Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law. Thank you. But I was about to say, every time we have an election, it's always the last few days before the election na, everybody's on edge, tensyonado lahat ng tao. And syempre, ang iniisip natin, ano ba yung mga imminent threats to the election? That's a question I'm going to ask General Carlos and General Centino. When we come back, we will be back after this very quick break. Politics as usual. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is Politics as usual. I'm Pio Ontiveros. My guests tonight, AFP Chief of Staff General Andy Centino, PNP Chief General Jonard Carlos, Myla Villanueva, PPCRB Chair, and Gus Lagman, Chair of NAMFREL. General Carlos and General Centino, any imminent threat to the elections? And I understand you did a lot of contingency planning, so you have everything ready, no? May what-ifs kayo, what to do. And pinag-aralan nyo ano yung 3 to 5 most probable or likely to happen, Giancarlos?
Yes, so far none. But we are monitoring and informations are, in the air. But we're prepared for whatever will happen after the elections, after May 9. So this is not the first time that we've been helping in the elections, especially handled by the COMELEC. So we're prepared. We're looking at the information. If it happens, we have our contingency.
Okay, can you share what that information is? Or ito yung mga sinasabi, sabi-sabi ng mga tao?
Lang yan.
Sabi-sabi.
So, once sinabi mo yan, magbabalidate kami.
Okay.
So, and we also look at the way their statement, may word na baka. Hindi sila sigurado.
Yeah.
So,
pero mas maganda ba na yung mga tao hindi na lang magbigay ng kung ano-ano.
Mas maganda, they just focus on you do your campaign, make sure that you show your plataforma and ask them to vote for you and let them vote on May 9. Right now, what we're trying to do is disrupt their money trail to make sure that they cannot do vote buying. That's the instruction of the Secretary, Ed Año, and the President. We also are monitoring our personnel. They're following the Alunan Doctrine. If they are providing security package and they know what they are doing. So just today, I had to put policemen on our holding area and undergo investigation.
For what violation exactly?
It's an unauthorized deployment. So I asked the regional director to put this guy already in a holding area, holding unit, together with the 4 policemen found in one area. They have to answer why they are in those areas.
Which region and what rank is this officer?
I have 3 PNC rank and 1 lieutenant colonel.
Lieutenant colonel.
Sinabi ko na yan as early as January and February. You look at these positions and bantayan nyo. Sinasabi ko, tingnan nyo to kung anong gagawin yan. That's why I went around the different police regional office. Tinitingnan ko sila sa ground. And I ended all my command visit April 19 in NCRPO. And I'm satisfied with all the preparations. I started monitoring and supervision and tweaking only after April 19. So when I get the information, I go down to my field commanders to validate the information. And then they find something, I immediately act on it.
What region, by the way, General, itong Lieutenant Colonel at yung PNCO niya?
Region 9, Region 4A.
4A Calabarzon.
Yes, and Region 7.
7.
So ito yung mga...
7 Visayas.
Ang instruction, be apolitical, non-partisan, neutral. You don't follow that, I'll make sure that I take action on it.
Pag-uusapan natin near the end of the show yung pagiging non-partisan ng both the AFP and the PNP. But General Centino first, as far as you are concerned, the armed forces is concerned, any imminent threat to the elections and what are you prepared for?
Well, Pia, we have prepared early this year, and we have issued directives and letter of instructions, ensuring that all our field units are ready, and they're prepared, they're organized. We have, aside from election duties, we also have current security operations that we're going after insurgents and terrorists. And we're doing both these tasks simultaneously, and we just would like to ensure that there are sufficient forces. If we talk about securing the elections, even while our troops are focused right now in going after insurgents, we still have available forces that we can deploy anywhere in the country. Of course, we cannot cover all areas. That's why it's important that we're able to assess, evaluate together with the PNP, with the COMELEC, where these areas that may be potential trouble areas during elections. So, yun ang ginagawa natin kasi hindi natin talaga totally makover lahat. No?
Yes.
So, we just have to select or assess saan natin dadalhin yung mga tao natin.
We'll go to the hotspots or the so-called areas of concern a little bit later on in about 5 minutes. But I wanted to ask you first, General Centino and General Carlos, kasi kanina sabi ko nga, the few days before the elections, it's always tensionado yung mga tao, everybody's on edge, like I was saying. But what for you will be the most critical period of the election? D-Day itself, Election Day, or the eve of Election Day, or the day after elections, the days following the election?
Well, for me, it's really the whole election period. Yeah. Okay. During campaign, there will be movement of persons. The candidates will be campaigning, and the supporters will also be attending the campaign sorties. So we see that because of this movement, there will be perhaps opportunities for those candidates who plan untoward. Planning something bad against their rivals. So this is where we see things could happen. That's why right now, when there are campaigns, we make sure that in coordination with the police, we have forces deployed in the campaign areas.
What specific information do you have on specific candidates? Sino?
No specific candidates. Well, there are areas that we still see full of insurgents, like in Samar, in Bicol area. We also have in Eastern Mindanao, of course, Lanao and Maguindanao in Central Mindanao. These are the areas that we're looking really closely because this is where the insurgents and terrorists are.
General Carlos, yung critical period, sabi ni General Centino, it's the entire
I would agree with that. We planned from day 1 to June 9. Yung deployment ng personnel namin will depend on the D-Day. So majority will be deployed days before, starting tomorrow. And we'll have full deployment starting tomorrow. Everybody will be on duty on May 9, and then we'll plan. We planned for it already, but the deployment is, we will not pull them out until we are assured of, walang ibang mangyayari.
Pag-usapan natin yung post-election scenario. Are you also prepared for any contingency in for example, some camps or campaigns contesting the outcome of the elections, whether on the local or the national level, that could trigger some unrest, some civil disturbance, any protests? Meron na bang ganong pinag-aaralang scenario?
We're prepared for civil disturbance management operation, yung CDM namin.
Yeah.
We
Which is the usual. You
the
always
usual,
do this.
yes.
Every
We
election,
started practicing for May 1, nothing happened. So we're continuing our practice and information gathering until election day, and then let's see. We're prepared for that. I'm always coordinating with Andy Centino, and we'll as deputized agency of the COMELEC, we'll get the instructions coming from the COMELEC. But we're ready.
John Centino.
We also have CDM units prepared. I-rehearse din natin kung anong gagawin. Maximum tolerance, yung mga tinuturo natin to make sure that when we deploy these units, if ever there will be disturbances happening within the bounds of the law.
Okay. And by the way, no, just to point out, magbimista kayo, no, your classmates, so it's easier to to coordinate. And teka muna, General Carlos, because you are your retirement date is May 8, the day before the election. Ano yun? Bitin, dead.
Well, we will get the orders from the Commander-in-Chief. I'm by law, it's May 8, so that's a
Yes.
Sunday, a day before election.
Yes, but it's so weird. Di ba?
May mga ano naman po yan, nasa batas yan. So what is legal can be done, then it can be done.
Okay,
But,
it's just but it's just that we're at a very critical period.
Yes.
No, we have election day and the post-election scenario, of course. But anyway, more from our guests when we return. This is Politics as Usual. Be right back.
DYKB Radio Ronda. Let's go.